My wife spent our emergency fund on designer bags, so I froze our accounts, left quietly, and filed for divorce without a warning. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and when I married Sarah, I thought I had found the perfect woman. She was everything I had ever dreamed of. Beautiful, ambitious, smart. We had so much in common. We both loved traveling, hiking, and spending hours just talking about life. We laughed at the same jokes, shared the same values, and it felt like we were destined to be together. On paper, we had it all. Our families got along, our friends loved us as a couple, and we built this life together that looked flawless. I couldn't imagine ever being happier. She always talked about how much she wanted a family, a stable life, a good future for our kids one day. All those conversations made me feel like we were so aligned in our goals. I thought I knew her, and she knew me. But that's the thing about illusions, they're only real as long as you're looking at them from the right angle. It wasn't until months later that I started noticing small things. Sarah began making more comments about luxury brands, designer clothes, and the right image. At first, I brushed it off. I thought, hey, it's just her being a bit superficial, nothing too serious. I didn't think much of it. But the cracks were starting to show, and I was too blind to see them. One day, she brought home this brand new purse. A designer bag, something I knew was ridiculously expensive. I didn't say anything, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. This was the first sign, the first little whisper that maybe we were on different pages. But I convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. After all, who doesn't want a little bit of luxury now and then? It wasn't until I dug deeper into our finances that I realized how wrong I was. That was the first red flag. I remember the first time I saw her splurge. We had just moved into a new house, and money was tight, like it always is when you're starting fresh. There were boxes everywhere, and we were still trying to get things settled. Sarah had promised me that we'd take it slow, focus on making the house feel like home before splurging on anything unnecessary. But then, she came home one day with a new designer bag, all shiny and perfect. I didn't even have to ask how much it cost. The price tag was written all over her face. At first, I brushed it off. It's just a bag, I told myself. We've worked hard. She deserves something nice. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But something about the way she acted, the way she showed it off, didn't sit right with me. It was as if the house wasn't enough. She needed to surround herself with these symbols of status to feel like she was successful. But then it happened again. And again. The bag wasn't a one-off. It was part of a pattern. First, shoes. Then, clothes. Every time I'd notice a new item, I'd ask, how much was that? She'd give me that sheepish smile. Tell me it was on sale. Or she needed it for work. I started to feel like I was just the guy holding the purse strings while she did whatever she wanted. The worst part was that it wasn't just occasional splurging. It was relentless. I'd ask her, we agreed we'd keep our spending in check, right? She'd nod, but I could tell it wasn't sinking in. The bills piled up, and our emergency fund started to grow thinner. I kept thinking, this isn't happening. We can't afford this. But every time I tried to bring it up, she'd brush it off like I was being unreasonable. I couldn't understand it. How could she be blind to the consequences of her actions? I've always been the one who kept track of our finances. We agreed that the emergency fund was sacred, something that would protect us in case of a medical emergency, job loss, or any unforeseen disaster. It was supposed to be a safety net, something we could rely on when life threw us a curveball. I trusted her, but I also knew that I had to keep an eye on things. One day, I decided to check the account. I thought I'd just take a quick glance, see if we had enough in there to cover some unexpected expenses. But when I opened the app and saw the balance, my heart sank. It was gone. All of it. Every single penny. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. But no, the number on the screen didn't lie. Our emergency fund was drained, completely wiped out. I sat there, staring at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. I didn't even know where to start. My mind raced, trying to find an explanation, but there was none. I scrolled through the transactions and my stomach turned. One by one, I saw the charges: designer bags, luxury items, one after another, each purchase more expensive than the last. I didn't even have to ask her about it. It was clear what had happened. She spent the emergency fund dower, lifeline, and bags. Not on anything practical. Not on anything that would help us in an emergency. I felt a wave of anger and disbelief flood over me, followed by a deep, painful betrayal. How could she do this? How could she be so careless, so reckless? That was supposed to be our security, and she had treated it like it was just another credit card limit to be blown on things we didn't need. Something snapped inside me. I could feel the trust, the foundation of everything we'd built, crack. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My hands were shaking as I confronted Sarah. She was sitting on the couch, flipping through her phone, acting like everything was fine. But I couldn't breathe, couldn't ignore the rage and disbelief swirling inside me. "Why did you do this?" I asked, my voice cracking with anger. "Why did you spend all of our emergency fund? That money was supposed to protect us, protect our future." She looked up from her phone, completely unfazed, almost indifferent. "It's not a big deal," she said, like she was talking about buying a coffee, not draining our safety net. "It's just money." "You're overreacting." My chest tightened, and I could feel the heat rising in my face. "Overreacting," I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. "This isn't just about money, Sarah. This is about trust. I trusted you with everything, our future, our lives, and you threw it away on bags. Designer bags. Things we can't afford. Do you even care?" She didn't flinch. She didn't seem sorry at all. Instead, she became defensive, her voice growing colder. "You think I'm the problem. I work hard, you know. I've earned this. I deserve it." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "I deserve a little luxury too. You think I'm supposed to live like this forever, stuck in this tiny house, saving every penny? No, I want more." I was stunned. I stood there, completely dumbfounded, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "You're not understanding," I said, my voice rising with frustration. "This isn't about luxury or what you deserve. This is about us. We're supposed to be partners working together. But instead, you're spending like there's no tomorrow, like I'm not even in this." She crossed her arms and looked away. "I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of it." "I'm fine. We're fine." That was it. It was the first time I realized we weren't on the same team anymore. I wasn't sure we ever had been. That night, I did something I never thought I would do. I could feel the anger burning in my chest as I sat there in front of my laptop, staring at the bank account screen. It was 2 a.m. and I couldn't sleep, not after everything that had happened. I was disgusted, sick of it. Sick of her recklessness, her lies, how she'd completely disregarded the trust we had built together. I hadn't told Sarah what I was thinking, but I knew she wouldn't understand. If I confronted her again, it'd be the same defensive excuses, the same dismissive attitude. She wouldn't see the gravity of the situation. She never did. So I did what I had to do. With a few clicks, I froze our joint accounts. I sat there, my heart pounding in my ears as the realization set in. She couldn't access any of it now. The money that was supposed to be our backup, our security, was locked away completely out of reach. I didn't even know why I felt so calm in that moment. Maybe it was the quiet satisfaction of taking control after feeling helpless for so long. For months, hell, for years, I had watched her make reckless decision after reckless decision, feeling powerless to stop it. But now, in that single action, I was doing something for me. I was taking back control of my life. I remember feeling a strange mix of power and guilt. Was I being too harsh? Was this too extreme? But deep down, I knew it wasn't. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the principle. She had taken something precious and used it selfishly. And now, I was making sure she couldn't do it again. The truth was, Sarah had no idea how deep my frustration had run. She was still asleep, blissfully unaware of what I had just done. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. I was finally putting my foot down. The next few days were pure tension. I couldn't stop thinking about the accounts, about Sarah's careless spending, and about how I was finally taking control for the first time in what felt like forever. But every time I tried to bring it up, it was like I was speaking to a brick wall. I remember sitting down with her one night, after work, trying to keep my voice steady. I had to make her understand this couldn't just slide anymore. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, feeling the weight of the conversation in my chest. "This isn't just about the bags or the money anymore. It's about us, our future. You can't keep ignoring the reality of what's happening. You've drained our emergency fund. You've been living like there's no tomorrow. How can you not see this?" She glanced up from her phone, almost annoyed that I was interrupting her scrolling. "You're acting crazy," she snapped. "It's just money, and you're making it a bigger deal than it is. Seriously, you need to calm down." I stared at her, fighting back the rising anger. "This is a big deal, Sarah. You've put us in a dangerous position. Do you even understand what you've done?" Her response was almost comical in its detachment. "You're paranoid. You're obsessing over nothing. We're fine. It's not like we're going to starve or lose the house. You're just overreacting. Overreacting." I felt the words burn through me, sinking deeper than anything she'd said before. It wasn't just the money. It was the way she dismissed me, like my feelings didn't matter. Like the life we were building together didn't matter. That was the lowest moment for me. I realized then that she truly didn't care. No matter how many times I tried to explain, no matter how hard I worked to make her see the consequences of her actions, she was never going to change. She wasn't sorry. It was like she was living in a bubble. Everything outside her little world was just noise. Nothing I said could pop it. I sat there, completely defeated. It was the first time I understood just how far apart we had grown. She wasn't the person I thought she was. She wasn't the woman I had married. She wasn't even on the same team as me anymore. I thought I had seen the worst of it, her casual spending, her dismissal of our financial future. But as I sat there, trying to make sense of everything, I stumbled onto something that hit me like a freight train. I had been going through our bank statements, trying to get some kind of control over this mess, when I noticed something strange. There were a few charges that didn't match any of the purchases we discussed. Little transactions that didn't add up, multiple payments to a credit card account I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was just a mistake, maybe some error with the bank. But as I dug deeper, my heart started to race. I found the credit card. It was under Sarah's name, but she had never mentioned it. She had hidden it. The balance was maxed out. I was speechless. I couldn't process it. I scrolled through the charges, each one more unbelievable than the last. She'd been living beyond our means for months, buying things I had never agreed to. Not just bags anymore, clothes, electronics, trips. A whole lifestyle she was funding by piling up debt, with no care or concern about the consequences. I kept telling myself, this can't be happening. She can't be doing this. She can't have kept this from me. But the proof was right in front of me. She had been running up debt, hiding it from me while I thought we were building something together. The worst part? She had no remorse, no apology, not even a hint of regret. When I confronted her later that night, she was unapologetic. It's just a card. It's not like it matters, she said, with that same cold indifference. We'll figure it out. But that wasn't just about bags anymore. This was bigger. It was about her complete disregard for me, for us, for everything we had worked for. She had been lying to me, living this double life, and I had been too blind to see it. All the trust I had placed in her shattered, gone. I knew I couldn't stay any longer. Not after everything I had learned. I had tried for so long to make it work, to fix things, but it was clear now she wasn't the woman I thought she was. And I couldn't keep sacrificing myself, pretending everything was okay when it was falling apart. So I started making my exit plan quietly. I couldn't tell her yet. If I did, she'd just try to talk me down, apologize, make promises she'd never keep. No, this needed to be clean. It had to be my decision, my choice, with no room for her manipulation. I started selling off some personal things I didn't need: old electronics, clothes I'd been holding on to for no reason. Small things, but it gave me some extra cash. I used that to set up a new bank account, one she couldn't access. I had to make sure she couldn't drain anything else from me. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about control. I made sure everything was in place before I told her anything. I'd already packed a small bag with what I needed, and I knew exactly where I was going. I wasn't going to give her the chance to beg to convince me that things would change. They wouldn't. She had broken me, and I couldn't go back to that. I wasn't doing this out of anger anymore. It wasn't about getting revenge or hurting her. It was about keeping my dignity. It was about taking back the life I had let her drag down with her. I wasn't going to let her define me any longer. The silence of my plan felt like the only way to keep my self-respect intact. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but it was the only choice left. The only way I could breathe again. The day I filed for divorce was the day I knew I had won back control of my life. It wasn't something I had planned for long, but by the time I walked out, I knew there was no turning back. No more games. No more explanations. I wasn't going to drag this out, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I didn't give her a warning. I didn't give her a chance to plead, to make empty promises, or to beg me to stay. That would have been easier, maybe. But I didn't want easy. I was done. I walked out of the house that morning with nothing but a small bag. I didn't even look back. I could feel the weight lifting off me with each step, like the chains of guilt and confusion were finally breaking. I had spent months, hell, maybe even years, questioning myself, wondering if I was overreacting, trying to save a relationship that wasn't worth saving. Now, I was done. I had taken back control of my life. I knew she would be furious when she found out, but I didn't care anymore. Her anger, her disappointment, it was all part of the price I had to pay for living in that toxic space for so long. She had taken so much from me. And now I was taking back the one thing she couldn't control: my future. The divorce papers were already in motion by the time I left. I made sure of it. I had no intention of giving her a chance to fight for me. She had already fought for herself, for her luxuries, for her selfish desires. This wasn't about the money anymore. This was about me taking back my life, my dignity, my peace of mind. She had no clue what was coming. But that's exactly how I wanted it. It wasn't just about leaving hurt, it was about self-preservation. And for the first time in a long time, I finally felt like I could breathe again. When Sarah found out, she was blindsided. I don't think she ever imagined I would actually go through with it. In her mind, it was just another fight, something we'd get over, something I'd forgive, like I always did. But this time, I didn't. The first few calls came in, one after another, her name flashing on my screen. I didn't pick up, not once. I couldn't bring myself to hear her voice, the voice that had deceived me, dismissed me, used me for so long. I knew if I answered, she'd start apologizing, telling me how sorry she was, how she didn't mean it, how she could change. I knew it would be the same old script promises that meant nothing. But I was beyond that now. I didn't care. She texted too. I ignored them all. Please, let's talk. We can fix this. I love you. It made me sick to my stomach. How could she still act like she was the victim here? Like I was the one who had betrayed her. But I wasn't looking for closure or an apology anymore. I had already made my decision. The truth was, I didn't even recognize the person she had become. That version of Sarah, the one I thought I knew, was gone. When she finally showed up at my apartment, I could see the shock in her eyes. She was furious, no longer hiding her anger, and I felt a strange calm wash over me. Her face twisted with confusion as she asked, "Why? Why are you doing this? What happened to us?" But even then, she still didn't understand. She couldn't comprehend why I had gone so far, and that was it. I didn't owe her an explanation anymore. I wasn't here to make her understand me, to make her feel better. I was here to live. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living on my own terms. This wasn't about winning. It wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. I had nothing left to say to her. No more words, no more promises. Just silence. And I was okay with it. I was free. The first few weeks after the divorce were the hardest. I won't lie about that. There were nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind: Sarah's lies, her indifference, the way I had let myself get lost in someone else's world for so long. I felt exhausted, emotionally drained, like I was still carrying a weight that I couldn't put down. But as the days passed, something started to shift. The anger began to fade, bit by bit. I started doing things for myself, things I had forgotten how to do. I dusted off my gym shoes, something I hadn't used in months, maybe longer. At first, the workouts felt like a chore, but soon I found myself pushing harder, feeling my body grow stronger. There was something freeing about focusing only on me for once, about working towards something that wasn't dependent on someone else. I also reconnected with old friends, people I'd pushed aside during the marriage. We'd grab dinner, talk about life, laugh about stupid stuff. I realized how much I had neglected the people who had always been there for me. It was like rebuilding a part of myself I had forgotten. I felt connected again, in a way I hadn't in years. The more I focused on myself, the more the peace started to seep in. I wasn't running on anger anymore, wasn't letting the past hold me down. It was like I was seeing the world with fresh eyes that weren't clouded by guilt or doubt. For the first time in so long, I felt free. I was no longer a victim of Sarah's actions. I wasn't defined by the mess we'd created together. I was taking charge of my life, and it felt amazing. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, was living. And that felt like victory. Looking back, I realize how much I let myself get lost in Sarah's world. She controlled everything: how I spent my time, how I felt about myself, even how I saw my future. And I let her. I let her drown out my voice, my needs, my dreams, all because I believed in what we had together. I thought love was supposed to be enough to make up for everything else. That somehow it would be the glue holding us together even when the cracks showed. But in the end, love wasn't enough to hold us together when everything else was broken. Now, though, it's different. I'm in control of my future. I'm the one making decisions, building something for myself, with no one's opinion or approval clouding my judgment. The divorce wasn't just the end of a chapter in my life, it was the start of a brand new story. And I'm the author this time. No more living in the shadow of someone else's choices. No more sacrificing myself for someone else's comfort. I'm not bitter about what happened. Not anymore. I'm just thankful that I finally woke up that I finally saw myself for who I really am and not just as Sarah's partner. Someone who existed only in relation to her needs. I am stronger now, more sure of who I am, more determined than ever to make this next chapter count. I know I have a long road ahead. Life's never perfect, and there will always be challenges. But I'm ready. Ready for whatever comes next. The last lesson I've learned. Never let anyone define your worth, not even someone you loved. I have my worth, my strength, my future, and no one can take that from me again.